is Justin McElroy, and this is Hi Poly, a daily E3 info dump for you, the busy consumer who doesn't have time to read a bunch. I'm here. I'll read the things to you. I'll tell you what happened. It's E3 2013. We're past the, let's see, the 0 day of the show, and then or the -1 day of E3. And yesterday, I guess, was 0 day. And then today is the first technical day of E3, even though it doesn't start for another 4 hours. But so much has already happened. If you weren't paying attention at all yesterday, we had the press conferences from Xbox and Sony outlining the future of the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. Let's talk about Xbox first. $499 price point. It's going to come this November. Some of the big, in terms of platform-wide announcements, we got Twitch integration. Going to be able to stream gameplay to your friends. Your Xbox Live Gold subscription is going to get more valuable. You're going to get 2 free games every month, so that's exciting. We're getting rid of points. If you've worried about that, you hate buying the cards and they're just real money now. Just growing, no more funny money. It's all dollars and cents now. So that's the Xbox One. I mean, we kind of had a pretty good idea of where the Xbox One was going. Of course, there's been a lot of hand-wringing, I guess, about the Microsoft DRM policies and some of their policies in terms of used games and online checks. They really didn't talk about that much. Also did not mention much about Kinect, which is interesting because it was such a large focus for the company in the last 2 E3s. Really saw them not talk about that at all, even though, interestingly, it comes packed in the box, and it's a large part of what's getting that price up so high. I mean, not a large part. The consoles, presumably the heft of the expense. But, I mean, it's part of the reason why the price is less equitable. So no talk about Kinect struck me as a little odd there. But we did have a lot of games to talk about. Obviously, we saw things we've seen before. Ryse from Crytek. We saw Sunset Overdrive, a new Insomniac action game. Killer Instinct, a fighting classic reborn. Minecraft is coming to Xbox One. So, again, it's been a huge success on the Xbox. So it's coming to Xbox One with bigger maps and more money for all parties involved, I would assume. Project Spark is a game creation, world builder tool game hybrid that looks a lot like Kodu, so I got my eye on that. Dead Rising 3, an Xbox One exclusive, continuing the franchise, a little bit more of a serious look for Dead Rising, not what we're necessarily used to. Crimson Dragon, from the creator of Panzer Dragoon, that is a... started life as a Kinect game, may still be a Kinect game. I don't know, since they didn't say the word Kinect for the entire press conference. It's hard to say. We also saw Below, which is really exciting, from the creators of Sword and Sorcery. Did about a minute on Below. Would like to see more. Similar art style, music again by Jim Guthrie, so it looked interesting. And of course, we saw Halo and Titanfall, some of the big FPS heavy hitters. Titanfall, of course, Microsoft paid a pretty penny to get them exclusive onto their console. That's the next game from Respawn, the former Infinity Ward staffers working on that. So a lot of known quantities, but absolutely a ton of games. I mean, that was the big complaint after the last event when the console was actually revealed, and it was answered. Lots and lots and lots of games. There's a theme that continued when we got our first look at the PlayStation 4. Now, the hardware, if you can imagine, is sort of like it looks similar to the Xbox One, except it's kind of on a slant, as you can see. I mean, it's slant. It's leaning a little bit. It's like, hey, take it easy, relax. We're gonna play video games. There's no need to stand up straight. It's got a little bit of a slouch going. It is going to be $399. At launch in, do we still have a launch month? I'm assuming it'll be, fall. It'll be before Thanksgiving. Don't worry about that. No new restrictions. It does not share the same used game restrictions or online checks as the Xbox One. But you are going to need to pay for the PlayStation Plus service if you want to play games online, which is new, though not out of step with what Microsoft has been doing with Xbox Live for many, many years. So it brings Sony in parity with Microsoft, but it is a new cost that was not there before. Of course, PlayStation Plus isn't just multiplayer. You're getting a lot of free games and what have you. They made a point of, as you can see here, highlighting how easy it is to share used games because you just give it to people. Sony clearly was enjoying that it was not in lockstep with Microsoft there. They had some fun with it there at the end. A lot of games also. Elder Scrolls Online, the Bethesda MMO, is going to come to PS4. Also, though, coming to Xbox One. So that is not an exclusive. What is exclusive is a beta that is coming to the PlayStation 4. Also, we saw Mad Max, new Avalanche game. We saw Destiny, the new Bungie game. We saw Final Fantasy games. We've got 14 Reborn versus 13, rebranded as 15. And then we saw a new Kingdom Hearts game, Kingdom Hearts 3. So Square, obviously, bringing a lot of Final Fantasy in the next couple of years. Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey came back. Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey, New and Tasty, I believe was the title there. Saw a lot of indie games too. Outlast, Secret Ponchos, Galaxy. Sounds very French the way I said it, but it's not French to my knowledge. The Order 1886 from Ready Dawn, the creators of some of the God of War portable games. Sort of a cool Victorian steampunk game in Whitechapel with lightning guns and monsters. What seem to be monsters, maybe just really sketchy people. I don't know. But look monstery to me personally. But that was PlayStation 4. Obviously, a lot of excitement from both parties. This morning we saw Nintendo, which we are going to talk about with my good friend and sibling, Griffin McElroy, right after this. So stick around.
No one said you could touch.
2? Wow. Bayonetta 2 representing
Wow.
a bold new direction for Nintendo.
They said all that kid stuff, get it out of here.
All that kid stuff out. I mean,
We're talking about hair weapons. We're talking about partial nudity. That's going on the back of the box. Talking about demon bites.
this is the deputy news editor for Polygon, Griffin McElroy. Griffin, this is a bold, new, mature direction for Nintendo that we saw today during Nintendo Direct.
You're making it sound like they did a 39-minute
You had Bayonetta. You had Bayonetta 2.
Sure.
There was some other
Very mature titles.
very mature titles. Like, tell me some of the mature games we can look for from Nintendo.
So you're goofing.
I'm
I
goofing
feel like
currently.
You're pretty
It's a little bit of a
okay.
goof. A little bit, I thought personally, and we'll go through this list here in a second, but I thought a little bit very predictable from Nintendo. Kind of exactly what you would think they would do.
Maybe a little bit, but isn't that what people kind of want from Nintendo? Like, we were hearing rumors.
Not this, people. I bought their dumb box. Give me something I'd like to play, please.
I mean, there wasn't anything in there that you wanted to play. That Super Smash Brothers trailer didn't do anything
that
for
Art
you?
Academy looked good. I've been wanting to work on my shading, so I
Sure.
did want to get into that.
Sure.
Get deep.
I feel like Nintendo actually had a pretty strong roster of games. All those are games that people have wanted on Wii U. All those, I think, were games that if any of them hadn't shown up, if Super Smash Brothers hadn't shown up, if the new Mario game hadn't shown up, if Zelda hadn't shown up, I feel like people would have been pretty disappointed in what the press conference had. I feel like they had a really great roster of games on offer. I think it's a little perplexing that they didn't do a proper press conference to show them off. Because the Nintendo Direct is something that happens 2 times a month in some months. It's not as much of a special occasion as it once was.
Smash Brothers is obviously the big announcement from the show. People have been demanding this for years.
Right.
How does it look to you? Did you check it out yesterday?
I did not. They did not. So I got to preview 5 Wii U games that were previewed in the Nintendo Direct, but Smash Brothers was not among them. I know that they sort of changed direction on development for that game last year. It's coming with a very obtuse 2014 release window, so it's hard to tell how far along they've gotten in development. They did announce that Mega Man will be in it. They also announced that the villager from Animal Crossing will be in it. I don't know if it's going to be my villager. I have a very unique Steez in that game that I don't know if I'll be able to replicate.
Fresh look.
Really fresh style.
Super today.
It looked good, but there was no gameplay footage. There was no. Well, maybe there was some gameplay.
It looked gameplay, maybe just so good.
It was just, oh man.
For me as a I would say a casual Nintendo fan.
Sure.
It is getting
A Sony crony.
a Sony crony, if you will. I will allow you that. No, for me, I'm starting to be reminded by Nintendo of comic books, where I feel like there are so many different. These franchises have spun off in so many different ways and so many different platforms. It's actually legitimately hard for me to keep up with, like, this one is that series, and this is on this console. I mean, obviously, Super Smash Bros. Is super iterative, but like the Mario games, for example, I can't keep. Which one is that?
So here's what's different.
Help me, Griffin.
It's by the same team who made Super Mario 3D Land on Nintendo 3DS, which was an excellent game.
Right.
Here's what sets it apart, though, and I really didn't get it until I played it. It's a multiplayer 3D Mario game. It's the first multiplayer 3D Mario game in the proper core platforming series. You can play with up to 4 players. The 4 characters from Super Mario Brothers 2 are in it, so Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Toad. And they have sort of the same characteristics that they had in the NES game. So Luigi's got his super floaty hop, and Peach can hover for a bit.
Same lineage as? I mean, is this the same lineage as Mario Galaxy? I mean, is that the area
they didn't make
where...
that exactly clear. It is Nintendo EAD Tokyo, but I'm not sure like which team is working on it. It's definitely the same team who made the 3DS game, though, and it was a lot of fun. It does
look like fun. We're watching a video right now. It looks fantastic.
It's a lot faster paced than 3D Land was, which helped. And really, just having more people in a 3D Mario game, you would think of it as being like a logistical nightmare, but it really was just like 100%, like really, really fun. Yeah, I played with 3 real humans. It's local only, no online, which is kind of a bummer. But I mean, I wouldn't expect Nintendo to have a sweeping success in the online multiplayer
famous?
policies. Yes, there was Brad Pitt, which is a Brad Pitt impersonator we found on the boardwalk somewhere here in Los Angeles, one of the many boardwalks in Los Angeles.
And Fat Captain America.
Fat Captain America was there.
Came along.
No, it was a lot of fun. A lot of the multiplayer actually felt a little Smash Brothers-y to me. Like we found a baseball a baseball came out of one of the bricks, and we just took turns throwing it at enemies, and it was really frantic and really fun. I'm actually really looking forward to that one.
Okay, so what else did you play? What else did you get time with?
I played Bayonetta 2, which we saw a brief video for before we started that you goofed on.
Bayonetta 2.
It was
2014,
fun.
worth noting, not this year.
No.
Great Nebulous 2014 also.
It was a lot of fun. It felt pretty much exactly like the old Bayonetta. There's a couple new mechanics in there, mainly the ability to charge up and turn your attacks into super attacks. So that's a exciting original gameplay mechanic. No, it really was a lot of fun. I think the big story for Bayonetta 2 is, even though it is a Nintendo exclusive game, it's not. They haven't dumbed it down at all. They haven't reduced the amount of violence or.
They haven't made it for babies.
It's not a baby game. That's true. Although I did notice, I didn't get a chance to check it out. There's a touch mode, which in the context of this game could be kind of grody, but it's it lets you use the gamepad screen to execute the more complex combos that the game has to sort of make
the flow to go to the screen.
Probably, I don't know. I didn't get a chance to check it out, but they mentioned that it's a more casual friendly thing, but the traditional modes and super hard difficulties are all still there. And it still breaks the game down into, you do a fight and then you get a ranking for it, and you just have to keep vying for rankings over and over again. It's all off TV play too. So.
Oh, cool. So, Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze.
Yes.
Not only my favorite flavor of Halls. It is.
That was the first thing I said, and every time I have mentioned that title since it was announced, it's like, oh, that sounds like some sort of frozen treat. It sounds like something you would buy.
Coming to Baskin Robbins, the Berry Blast Tropical Freeze.
It's made by Retro, so.
Okay. Is this the what was the is this the classic? Have we seen the classic Rare franchise that was going to be? Is this
Killer Instinct?
Killer Instinct?
Yeah, that was
Xbox's
not
Rare
jam.
making it.
No, right, exactly.
Right.
Tropical Freeze is very much in the same vein as Donkey Kong Country Returns. It is a 2.5D, I guess, platformer. It has 1 to 2 player, playing as Donkey or Diddy, and Polygon exclusive. They said Dixie Kong was going to be up in it. Didn't see her in that trailer. Dixie Kong, back in the mix. Got that ponytail. This is exclusive hot scoops. Polygon, you heard it here first. Go tell your friends. Link it.
You gotta go write that up. That's
hashtag Polygon Dixie Kong.
So Griffin, there was another one. Pokémon? Pokémon? Is it Pokémon?
My experience with the Pokémon franchise is very limited.
X and Y.
X and Y, baby. Let me tell you.
Okay, go on. Let's bring it out here. Give it to me straight.
Sony put on a great press conference. Microsoft put on a good press conference. Sony put on a great press conference. Screw all that. Fairy type, new type coming to Pokemon X and Y. We're talking about an entire new genus. Do you realize how big this is? It's not just that they're adding new Pokemon and new types to the game. They're going to bring those old Pokemon, give them new types. You look at Clefairy, and you're like, you're not a normal type. Like, you can look at it and tell it's obviously not a normal type.
Some sort of genetic mutation.
Gardevoir, you're like, I just don't see it to me.
You look like a regular
You look
dude.
more fairy type to me.
Yeah.
Now they're going
is
Jigglypuff.
Jigglypuff is a fairy type?
No,
or
it's obviously a normal. Of course, it's a fairy type. Look at it.
It's not normal.
It's not normal.
Why? That is almost sort of. I think it creates an uncomfortable stigma for the other Pokemon who aren't of Clefairy's sort. I mean, you look at that, it's like, well, that's normal. That's beautiful, according to all the magazines.
Sure.
Clefairy and Jigglypuff are. That's the ideal that we should strive for because they're normal.
Sure.
And everything else is atypical.
Sure.
But now they're fairies.
Here's that big question, though. Chansey?
I think that's a question on everybody's mind.
I think it's the hot question on everyone's lips and minds. No, I mean, joking aside, it looks super good.
Does it?
It looks super good.
You gonna go to towns to get badges?
Probably, yeah. I would imagine there would be maybe 6. No, definitely 8 of them.
You think Team Rocket's gonna be up in it?
I think some variation there.
Some variation. Okay, so Pokemon. Did you have anything else you say in your contractually obligated Pokemon X and Y segment before we move on?
They showed off a mode where you can pet and feed your Pokemon. Like, that's
Cody,
it.
it's over.
Nail in the coffin.
It's
Go
over.
cancel your PS4 and Xbox One pre-orders and just buy X and Y, catch them all.
I just want to touch my Pokemon.
What's Fairy type gonna be weak against? What's it gonna be strong against?
Well, maybe Dark type.
That's a good predicting. I think you know more about this thing
Right,
than you.
let's move on before it gets too dark in here. So we saw Wii U Party and Wii Fit known quantities, but those are coming later this year.
Yeah,
Correct?
yeah. We don't have to talk about those because Nintendo obviously doesn't want to.
Yeah. Mario Kart 8.
Mario Kart 8. I'm a big Mario Kart fan. I think Mario Kart 64 is where my particular interests lie. This is made by the same team who did Mario Kart 7 for 3DS, which was terrific. I forget who the main developer was, but Retro actually collaborated on that to make some of the Donkey Kong levels, and I think a little bit more too. It feels really, really, really fun. It has local and online multiplayer. They wouldn't go into exactly what the online multiplayer entailed. But
You
they
have
sort
to
of
put in friend codes to give your car fuel. You have to type
Yes,
individual
exactly.
codes to keep your car going.
But they did hint that it would have sort of similar functionality that Mario Kart 7 had, which was, I would say, probably the most robust online multiplayer offering that Nintendo has ever put together on any console. It had, it had communities that you could set up and sort of set up matches through. It had random matchmaking, so if you did want to play online, you didn't have to go through and find 3 other people with a 3DS and get their friend codes. It was actually, it was not exactly as far along as Xbox Live or PlayStation Network, but I think this team knows what it's doing as far as online multiplayer, and that's, I think, the super important thing for that one. It also has, I played it.
Fun?
It is super fun. Didn't see any new power-ups, but there were a load of old racers. The big thing is anti-gravity this time, so the track will invert in on itself, and then you're driving on the ceiling, which is the game also looks really, really good on Wii U, and it looks really great in those moments where you're driving upside down and look up, and the people who are behind you are driving. It's like that scene in Inception. It's actually a super cool effect, and it opens up new areas in the track, so you can drive up on the side of a building and drive while everybody else is down on the ground like a bunch of suckers.
Did not mention the new. They did talk about Wind Waker HD, right?
Yes.
Showed a little bit of that.
Yep, that's coming out in October, I believe they said.
But didn't mention the new Link to the Past 2, which I kind of thought they might. I know it's
No.
a 3DS game. This is very Wii U focused.
Yeah, it was a super Wii U heavy event. I think they just gave it so much screen time in the last Nintendo Direct where they debuted it. They actually just released a new trailer, which we're going to have up on the site in a couple minutes.
Polygon.com.
Along with the title of the game, which I have already forgotten what it is, but they announced the title. It has Link in it, so
Yeah, one would assume.
That's clever.
Griff, how do you? Oh, and then there was the Xeno. Did we actually get a title for that? The X.
X. I don't know if that's a working title. I honest to God don't know what's going on with that game. It looks a heck of a lot like Xenoblade Chronicles,
Yeah,
which
seems
I
like a
really
Xenoblade game.
liked. Yeah, but they have not been very clear about what they're doing there.
Griff, how do you feel about Nintendo right now?
Honestly,
this is their big E3 thing.
Sure.
I know it's an unfair. They're not going to want to compete with PlayStation and Xbox. They
But
can't hang
here's the
with
thing.
that right now.
Here's the thing. I think they could have hung. I think, okay, maybe 1 or 2 more games that people could have gotten excited about.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a huge lineup. If they had put this on with the bombast of a press conference, that's fine. But what they gave us was 39 minutes
On a 15-inch screen.
on a
We were
15-inch
all
screen,
huddled around.
and also I don't know if you were paying attention. The North American stream was broken for almost the entire thing, and not just for us, around the world. That was your press
there was
conference.
someone in Nintendo Japan just looking at it and said, "This is why we don't do online. Look at it. It's so
we
unpredictable.
don't got the servers. We don't got the pipes.
We don't have any pipes."
I think they could have afforded to do a press conference, and I think they would have hung a lot better than people give them credit for, because they don't have the new hardware.
But they
theirs is
they also aren't asking you for money.
They're not asking you for money. If you have it, you have it, and you're getting excited for this stuff. I purchased a Wii U 2 weeks ago, right before I came here, with the express purpose of wanting to care about what Nintendo was showing, and I'm not disappointed in the games they showed. I guess I'm just a little disappointed in the way that they showed them.
Fantastic. Griffin, thank you so much for
Hey.
joining us. Sure appreciate it. I'll see you soon. Make sure you save me some eggs,
Okay.
if that's what we got over there. I can see. I'm watching people
It's a
eating
quiche.
breakfast.
It's a quiche.
It's a quiche.
It's in the
Quiche-based.
quiche region.
Coming up in just a second, we got Brian Crescente. He's the news editor of Polygon.com.
Nobody says his name right.
Hey, come on. I'm trying to throw to
Sorry.
the trailer. Jesus. Okay. Coming up after this, we got Brian Crescente.
Crescente?
You bag of butts. I really don't like you at all. We're gonna watch the World of Tanks, so watch it.
Wargaming has one massive PC game with 70 million registered users. That's World of Tanks. They're seeing server loads of 1 million concurrent users. That same game, that same free-to-play model is coming to the 360, and it's also going to be free. The Xbox 360 has always been a hotbed for shooters. Gears of War, Halo, Call of Duty. All of those games run great on a 360. That community of players, that install base, is familiar with them.
The firing, aiming, zooming, stuff like that, we really went with console conventions. You know, everybody's played Call of Duty, everybody's played Battlefield, and those are the control schemes we wanted to model it after, so that people picked it up and were, you know, immediately successful in driving a tank.
We're trying to make the actions that make players successful as smooth and as seamless as possible. Like, I consider success if people don't say, well, these analog controls are great, if they just forget and they're like, oh, I'm gonna totally capture the base, or, you know, that's what I'm after. I want them to forget they're holding a piece of plastic in their hand.
There's never been analog inputs to World of Tanks. There's 70 million people who've only had a keyboard and mouse to play with. Putting it onto an Xbox 360 controller with limited real estate, that was a project. Playing it felt all right. Being able to adjust the throttle with the left stick, being able to turn the turret with the right stick, it felt like World of Tanks. It felt good.
Like, at first it's, let's put an analog input. Like, it sounds kind of simple. Like, the more you push on a stick, the more horsepower goes towards the treads, and the more you go forward or turn. Or it's interesting because so much of what playing a tank is like it was really built around really discrete forward, backward, left, and right. So it's more than just analog. We're also, like, you know, up and to the left. Did you do that from the start, or were you going full bore when you decided to do that?
One of the hardest things about driving a tank is, you know, your body can be going one way while your turret is facing the other way. And, you know, being able to communicate that at player, allowing options for them to auto-rotate back, locking the camera in sniper mode so people aren't getting all disoriented, all little tweaks that we've been making to make the game more accessible.
World of Tanks plays best on a very capable modern PC. A 7-year-old 360 with 512 megs of RAM, that is not a modern PC anymore. So there were some limitations in the graphics. There was a lot of aliasing, a lot of jaggies that we saw in the game that we played, especially looking down the barrel of the gun. Zoomed across the map, you could tell that you were on a 360, and it wasn't as rich of a graphical experience as you could see on a PC. So why not the next Xbox? Or better yet, what would it take to get this game on 360 onto the next Xbox system?
And new consoles come out, they're very, very expensive, there's very few games, penetration is very low to start, so a free-to-play game like this, you need a lot of users online, so there's always battles to be had. So it made sense to start with a console we knew, the 360. We shipped multiple games on it, an install base that was the biggest of any console, and then set our sights on the future when that's a little bit more known and a little bit more robust and has a good user base.
The build that we played today wasn't final. We've been told that they're gonna work on some of those issues that we noticed. It's to be expected with hardware this old. This is really the first AAA free-to-play title that's coming to the console generation, albeit late in the generation cycle, but this is a big deal. This is a new way for people to consume a game on a console.
Wargaming, we look at the free-to-play space, you know, is pretty interesting. We're not just trying to pilfer all the money we can out of people. What we really want to do is create an environment where everybody has a great time playing. It's everybody's got an opportunity to win. The purchases enhance the experience, but they don't necessarily, you know, allow you to buy a win or anything along those lines.
What we will be, you know, monetizing, it's more of a convenience and exploration and vanity type things, right? So they can players can play for a premium account, which gives them an extra earn on their XP and their silver, their in-game stuff, so they earn more for every battle. And then there's the premium tanks, which aren't better tanks, they're better earning tanks in some cases, but they're not better fighting tanks. They're balanced with the rest of the tanks.
There's no barrier to entry. to start playing World of Tanks on the 360. It's free to download, it's free to play. You can give them money if you want to. The way that could backfire for Wargaming West is if too many people want to play it. We all watch SimCity crumble under the load of too many people wanting to experience it at the same time. That was a $60 title. This one being free, Wargaming West could end up with orders of magnitude more players on their servers than they're expecting.
Wargaming as a company has broken records on peak concurrent users on their server clusters, okay? So the company as a whole is very knowledgeable on what kind of cluster needs to be put together to have a great experience for the consumer.
One of our #1 goals when we started this project is don't touch the servers. Because it's one, it wasn't our expertise. Two, they just work. And so leave the server alone, make all the changes on the client. But the Big World servers it's really what the PC has developed and made very, very stable over the past 3 years.
There have been situations where servers have been overwhelmed, and these are the kind of things that we will avoid. We're going to have a very robust server architecture deployed immediately. We're anticipating a hugely successful game. But there's still a matter of seeing how some of these new components that we're putting into the system, how they respond and how much bandwidth it takes up.
The thing I want to stress most about our trip to visit Wargaming West was that this game was fun. I got that same pleasurable sensation that I got from playing Battlefield 1943 when it came out on the 360. You know, the good thing is that, take it or leave it, it's there to play. You don't have to give them any money to test out their systems. If it's not fun, people are going to walk away. If Wargaming West can meet the demand of all of these Xbox 360 users coming to play their game, this could be a really exciting title for an aging Xbox 360.
Thank you to Charlie Hall for his piece on World of Tanks. I'm joined by Brian Crescente, the news editor for Polygon.com. Brian, World of Tanks paints a picture of a dystopian future where tanks have killed all people on Earth.
Right.
The Earth is only populated by tanks.
That's one take. I think one tank on the idea.
Yeah.
So one take on the-
there are no people. There are only tank. Tank law, tank religion.
They're free to roam in their natural state.
Finally,
Herds of
tanks
tank.
unchained.
Right.
The only problem is they don't know how to get fuel.
Right, it's
So
terrible.
there's wars over
Human blood is fuel.
Human blood is fuel. They find the last remaining people.
Yes.
World of Tanks is not that. It is it's a PC game that
Was a PC game.
now it's been unchained, much like the tanks after throwing off the shackles of human control is moving to the Xbox 360.
Yes. It's and the cool thing is they built this from the ground up for the Xbox 360. So this isn't a port. I mean, when you play it, you're going to say this is a port, but it was designed specifically for the console. Plays a lot like the PC game. It's a lot of fun. You have to be. It's a title that doesn't attract certain types of people. I think you really need to be into tanks. Go figure. And it's really like a slow first-person shooter. That's the way I sort of view it.
But
it's like a really slow.
It is. It is. I mean, it's obviously super popular on the PC, but it is not what you would call a mainstream title. Do you think that having, putting it onto console, making it free to play, could it have that kind of penetration? Is this the kind of thing that maybe people will just give it a shot? It's like, oh, okay, that seems kind of
Give it a shot. Yeah, I think that's possible. I mean, it's a fun game. I'm hard because I like tank games. I like tank sims, and there aren't a lot out there.
Right.
And this is very much a hardcore tank sim. I mean, you don't have to change your treads or anything, but you can go in and you can tweak the layout of your tank. It's all based on real tanks. They really do a good job of like detailing all the tanks through a very specific time period from specific countries. It's a lot of fun. I think people who haven't given it a shot will like it. The question is, will they want the pacing? Because it's, like I said, it's a much slower game than, say, Call of Duty. But it does have that sort of feel. I mean, it essentially feels like, depending on which perspective you're playing, in a third-person or first-person shooter, just really, really slow.
Wow, what is the appeal, Brian? Like, what is it?
People like me who are old and can't play Call of Duty anymore, that's the audience.
A little more strategy, right? You can say,
it's
okay.
like, I'm slow.
I'm
really
slow. I can plan my attack.
Like, you could see the guy come. It's like, imagine if someone took Call of Duty and slowed it down.
I mean, I am
Pretty
getting
awesome.
older. I'm getting up in years. That is appealing to me from a certain perspective. So free to play. Have they talked about monetization?
I was talking to them last night about it. There is going to be a premium. So first off, it's free to play if you're gold. If you're a gold member.
Right.
If you're not, you can get, I think it's a 7-day trial where you can check it out. But even if you're playing free to play, there's the option, just like with the PC version, to pay for premium. They haven't talked about the pricing yet, but premium does a lot of interesting things. It allows you to accrue more experience and more money. Both of those things are used to unlock new tanks and to upgrade your tanks. Every time you go into battle and come out of battle, you have to repair your tank. You also have to buy ammo, which is really interesting. These are all things that maybe someone who plays a game like Call of Duty wouldn't think about. But like every shot you take, at the end of a round, you don't see people in World of Tanks like shooting their guns.
But enjoyable. When's it coming? When's it out?
Well, the beta actually goes live this weekend.
Catch it.
Yes, absolutely.
Let me know how it is, because I'm stuck here in this dumb show.
It's pretty stupid.
In this bubble that I'm imprisoned in, that I'm not allowed to leave, on this stool that you can't see, but my butt can see and has seen for 20 hours a day, every day for the past 3 days. Brian, let's talk about what I think is one of the more interesting Xbox One exclusives that was revealed yesterday.
Right.
Dead Rising 3.
What I find most interesting is that they are dialing down not the built-in humor, but the over-the-top, like, part of the storyline humor of the game. So it's a little more serious, a little grittier. They still expect you to find your own humor in the moments, but this is from one of the developers. He said, you're going to find your own humor. And then he was like, but also, by the way, the zombies now have intestines. And I'm like, that's a lot of humor.
Lay it out there. Yeah. Do with this information what you will. The zombies now have intestines.
Right. So when you cut into them, guts.
What's the team working on this? Is this?
It's Capcom Vancouver.
Okay.
So they did Dead Rising 2.
Right. Okay. It feels like maybe they have earned. They feel like they've maybe earned with Dead Rising 2 a way that they can sort of step away from that and do maybe their own thing, not as established from Dead Rising 1.
I mean, they said, if you're referring to the humor thing, they're saying that the reason they did this was because they felt like they had basically saturated like their work on humor in Dead Rising, and like if they kept kind of trying to one-up themselves in that way, they would have sort of not been funny anymore. So instead, they decided to make
funny. It was funny before.
Intestines.
Yeah,
I mentioned the intestines, right?
This also kind of feels it's interesting from Capcom, because this is another example of sort of that. Capcom has made a play to sort of become more of a Western developer. I mean, it's something they've been working on for literally 5 years, with varying degrees of success. Do you think this fits into that strategy?
Yeah, this was their first project. Dead Rising 2 was their first project where they said, we're going to have a Western developer make this game, and we're going to see how it goes. I think it went fairly well for them. 3, like I said, it's grittier. It looks like they're doing a lot. I mean, it's not just that they're making it a little more serious. It's open world, which is kind of cool. It also has a little bit of Kinect functionality.
Oh, really? What kind of stuff? They didn't show that.
So it has Scream technology built into it. So you can. So these zombies. This is actually one of the key points. The other Dead Risings, I think the zombies were sort of a force of nature. So if you ran into one zombie, no big deal. You could kind of walk around them.
Right.
And if you ran into like a sea of zombies, you were screwed. And that's sort of the dynamic. In this game, if you run into one zombie, it will eat your face off. Okay. So you don't want to run into one zombie. You want to take that one zombie out. Okay. And the zombies can call for other zombies. They can call for backup.
Okay.
He said it was a moan, so it's not like they're on like their radio. So.
Hey, listen, it's Zombie Greg. I'm over in Sector A. Got a breather. Got a breather here.
So so they're intelligent. They're way more aggressive. They listen for noises. So if they hear you, they'll take note and they'll come over and maybe moan out for others to come over. And so the way Kinect works with all of this is that you can actually shout, and the zombie will hear you shout. And so then I said, well, what if you're playing the game and you're with a friend and you're having a conversation? Is the zombie going to be like looking over at you like, what? And then come eat your face? They said they're tinkering with that. What they haven't figured out how to get around is my son running into the room when I'm stealthing through a bunch of zombies and going, "Wah!" and then running out of the room, because he will do that.
Tell him not to. This is why you gotta have rules. You gotta set boundaries. Take it from me.
Just shout at him.
Just shout.
Yeah, that's right. Hit him.
So tell me more. Tell me more about the actual game itself, Dead Rising.
I didn't get to play it, but like I said, it looks very gritty. I'm going to keep using the word gritty over and over again.
Keep using the word gritty because that was actually what stood out to me. And you know, it's funny. I can understand why that's the right thing for Dead Rising, right? I mean, but when you look at it in the larger landscape, it feels like, oh, okay, another game that looks like this.
Right,
you know?
right. You've got The Walking Dead, you've got World War Z, and now you have Dead Rising 3, where Dead Rising, the franchise of the series, stood out because it was wacky. Those wacky things are still there. There are the outfits, there are the Capcom, like, calls to Capcom. I didn't see any of this, but they said it's all in there. The world is much more open. You're in this town. The town, and this is the funny part, the town is going to be completely annihilated after, I think you have 6 hours. This is another thing they did.
Is it timed again?
But you have 6 hours. 6 hours is plenty of time. You could play Nightmare Mode, however.
I will.
3 hours.
Sounds like me.
3 hours.
Oh, perfect.
The other thing that they did was it has autosave, which is going to flip some people out.
That's going to be great.
Right.
I
so
almost explicative it did.
You're on a bench. But if you play Nightmare Mode, there is no autosave.
Okay.
And they also, you can make your own weapons, of course, in this game. Now you don't have to go to a workbench.
Oh.
So you can just hunker down around the zombies, whip out your duct tape, and
ignore me. Real quick before I let you go, NFL.
It's I believe it has something to do with football.
Is there live?
It's an app.
Super quick.
It's an app. It's based on ESPN. It allows you to do a bunch of things. You can do Final Fantasy stuff. Final Fantasy. That would be awesome.
I'm racing my choke. Hey, yeah.
Yes, that's how much I know about football.
Finally, I'm into football. Everybody, I can race chocobos in it.
Fantasy football. But yeah, it allows you to flip around. You can pull up a sidebar and see information while you're watching live football. They have shows from NFL.com that you can watch. Cool. And yeah, it does all that stuff.
Awesome. Well, Brian, thank you so much for talking to us about Xbox One offerings. Coming up right after this, we've got Matt Leon. We're going to talk about Ryse and so much more. So stick around. We'll be right back.
So right back there somewhere is Crytek, who you might know from games like Crysis, Far Cry, a bunch of others. Now they got a new Xbox One game called Ryse. Some people remember Ryse as a game that Microsoft promoted in trailers. Like in 2010, they showed an E3 trailer for a game called Codename Kingdoms, and then in 2011 they renamed it Ryse. Once they signed a deal with Microsoft, they kind of made it into a Kinect game. That didn't work quite as well as they wanted.
And then we explored this Kinect experience in a number of prototypes. Whether this is like navigation problems, whether it's combat problems. So what we said is, okay, this is cool, but core gamers may not yet be convinced to use Kinect.
It's sort of the human part of Kinect that is the toughest nut to crack. It's like getting everyone to do a sword swing sort of the same way. We want to make this really kind of, immersive experience. And when you have to teach players how to just do basic actions, you're going to spend a lot of your time doing that rather than just making them be immersed in the world.
So Ryse, the version that you're going to see coming out, it's been in development about 2 years, and it's a third-person combat game. They want to make sure that people know that this is a controller game and that you only use Kinect a little bit. And you're running around, you're using a sword and shield, you're deflecting attacks, you're hitting people with kind of short burst attacks, and then you have what they call executions, which is a lot of button prompts will appear over enemies' heads, and you can choose different ways to execute them. They're being a little cagey about the specifics of the executions, but the idea is it's not an automated thing. It's set up to give you choices.
The religious rule, so to say, in the combat is flow. Like going into combat, going into fighting it, executing it, going to the next guy, execute. Once you did that, and once you decide which type of execution you're going to apply on this player, you'll have a short-term boost usually as well. So for example, health regeneration.
Just hearing that being described and watching it being played, it seems like something that pretty much anyone can do. It doesn't seem like there's really as much of a mastery to it.
Oh, there is.
Okay,
Certainly
so where does that come from? Because it seems like most of the attacks are pretty straightforward, and it's more the choices in how you do it.
The very core is simple to access. But if you want to master it, it takes some effort, right? But as you master the previous executions, there's new ones coming in that are more complex to hit as well.
So where does the challenge come from? Is it timing? Is it complexity?
Timing and picking the right guys first, like making a strategic choices. Which execution do I pick to inform my decision? And so for legendary players, gamers that are really kick-ass, they are going to be able to flow from one enemy to another, to another, to another, and then into another wave and keep flowing.
I think one of the interesting things for Crytek is they're going up against a bunch of sequels. Like most games in the third-person action genre that are popular these days have had multiple sequels. They're on like their 4th or 5th game, so they kind of have to put their own spin on it in competing with these other games.
You have to kind of blaze your own path, right? You have to figure out something that is different from everybody else. Like me as a core gamer, I don't want to play, God of War, Crytek's version, or Assassin's Creed, Crytek's version. Crytek has made first-person games, and we have all this awesome tech where we show stuff at, high detail close up. So pulling a camera, like way back here, doesn't necessarily make sense for us.
One of the early frameworks that we set up to build the story around, or the experience that we were seeking around, was this concept of 6 inches to 6 feet. And basically what we mean by that is we wanted to own the intensity of battle, right? The close-up, you and me close together. How do I look? How do I feel?
They made a big deal about kind of how the camera bounces around between all these different options. It seems to work well in the version they showed us. It's pretty impressive. They get the camera up pretty close to behind the player. So the whole point is they want to kind of show some emotion on players.
Video games have always kind of been like a bad high school play, where like kind of people are missing their cues, and it's like, we need to march forward, and then the guy would turn around and walk through a bush.
We're taking performance capture to another level, both with the amount of actors and the fidelity that we're dealing with them. We've had on set more than 12 actors being PCAP'd at the same time, so it's very much like directing big scenes in movies. But the difference here is that you're standing in a PCAP stage, and basically they can only see what the set looks like on a monitor.
Traditionally, third-person games do not deliver emotions that much. They deliver body emotions, body language, like tiredness and things like that. You can convey that, but the facial expression and truly like detailed expression of pain or anger or sadness is something that hasn't been done in a third-person systemic way.
Obviously the graphics are going to be outstanding and look amazing, but what we wanted to put on top of that is that we really wanted to have the audience experience the characters and see the characters and create characters that have actual emotion. And to really build that emotional connection, we felt that we needed to use the film language, the television language of getting close to the character, seeing how he reacts, how he feels about whatever is confronting him.
You might think of Crytek as a company not really known for story, like the Crysis games specifically, not much story in them. So it's kind of interesting that Crytek is putting more of a focus here on Ryse's story. We'll see how it goes. It's an interesting experiment for them. It's certainly something new. From what we saw in the demo, it's really hard to get a sense of how it's going to differ from most games, because a lot of like the facial animations weren't in, a lot of the stuff that they're talking about is not in yet. So it's not that it's doing bad, it's just not there yet.
And for our company, Ryse is a major step forward and difference also, because it's a whole new IP, it's a whole new technology, it's to be also honest, it's a whole new team as well. So there's a lot of firsts here, and then again, the most critical pressure, it's a launch title for Xbox One, and we don't want to disappoint.
So Ryse is very clearly like a new franchise. It's different than a lot of stuff that's come before, but it's also very similar. They have the up-close camera stuff, they have some of the execution options, they have a lot of interesting kind of ideas for combat with the flow and everything. It's definitely not what you would expect from a third-person action game, but it's not an entirely new genre. It's an old genre brought up to date in some interesting ways. Whether they pan out or not is going to be interesting to see.
Matt Leone,
hello,
Deputy Features Editor for Polygon.com. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
To Hi Poly. It's a show. Ryse is a game that you have been exploring a lot lately. You worked on that in-depth feature there. What do you think about it?
I think it's cool. I'm kind of a sucker for any game that has a really long development cycle and we can write interesting stories about.
Yeah.
So this game has been in development for technically 7 years.
Yikes! What's that look like? I mean, what was the original plan?
Yeah. So back in 2006, they had 2 ideas. One which was called Kingdoms, and one which was called Kings. Action game, first-person action, like hack and slash game was Kingdoms. Kings was an MMO. And then Kingdoms is the game that eventually got picked up and turned into Ryse. It became a Kinect game when Microsoft got involved.
And it was called Kingdoms when we first saw it, right?
Yeah, they announced it in 2010 as codename Kingdoms. And at that point, it was like hold your shield up and swing things around for Kinect. But then, like a year or 2 later, it became more of a traditional kind of third-person action game.
So what is the flow of action like? It was a little hard to get. You stab people. That's the whole. It's kind of hard watching the presentation yesterday to get a sense of what all was involved there.
There's a lot of comments on that online too, because people are kind of confused by the combos and combat and all that. They see the little kind of button icons, and there's a lot of QTE complaints and that kind of thing. Part of the problem is that we don't entirely know. A lot of it is based on kind of flow and kind of the rhythm. Like most enemies go down pretty quick. It's not like you're fighting the same guy for 2 minutes or something like that. It's like 2 or 3 hits, then he's gone. The interesting like layer that they have in there is that they have this like execution system. So the final like hit on any enemy will kind of play into your upgrade system and the strategy and kind of how you finish the battles. Unfortunately, I didn't get to like see enough of that to really know if it's good or bad, but it's a little bit different than what you would think of from like a quick time event.
Graphically, you've seen a lot of this game. It's hard to judge from streams and stuff like that. Does it look really next gen when you're seeing it in action?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like Crytek's thing is visuals. So if they're not going to hit that, what are they going to hit? But yeah, I think that especially compared to everything else. Like if you had asked me 2 years ago, like what I think next gen games are going to look like, I would have told you everything will look better than it looks now. But you know, I think compared to everything else here, I think Ryse is definitely one of the best looking games.
I think for me, in my mind, it's hard to sort of separate Crytek from Crysis. I mean, the two are I mean,
that's why they put the Y in the title.
Yeah, exactly.
Although apparently that was Microsoft's decision.
Really?
Yeah,
that's interesting. I didn't know that. Good for them. But I don't necessarily think of like this is a very different milieu than I'm used to seeing them work in. Like, did you get a sense of what attracted them to this, doing something like this? It's just so different.
Yeah, so I mean, apparently they've actually had like a bunch of kind of canceled and in development projects that have tried different things. They made a big deal about this being their first third-person game because technically all their other stuff, it's been shooters to me, but to them it's like first-person. Whereas this time it was initially first-person, but then they pulled it back and now it's third-person. I think, you know, they say that this basically, they're making it in Frankfurt, which is where they made Crysis, but most of the people who are working on this team haven't worked together before. So it's kind of like a bunch of people have come together. And as they tell, like a lot of those guys have worked on third-person action games before, but not as a group together. So it's kind of a new thing. And they're trying new stuff. Like they're moving the camera a lot closer to the character than you see in most third-person games.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And they're doing like a lot of stuff with facial animation and kind of like trying to get the emotions of enemies in there and stuff like that. You know, emotion, but
yeah.
I mean, they take it very seriously. So.
Is there any Kinect functionality that sort of made its way over from the original design?
Yeah. So, well, actually, the very original design didn't have Kinect, and then it had it, and then it doesn't have it again.
Okay,
it's very cute. But yeah, so right now there's voice commands. Like there'll be enemies that kind of you get a prompt and you can tell them to charge. Most of that's like context sensitive stuff. Like I think in the demo you can see a couple of those like context sensitive like voice commands. I don't think they used them on stage, but there are places where you could put those in. But the interesting thing to me is occasionally they're going to use this for like how enemies kind of relate to you or how your team relates to you. So like if you talk to a guy, you'll give him like a morale boost and then he'll be like a little stronger. Or if you like taunt an enemy, he might get like angrier at you and then he'll be harder to kill, but if you kill him, you'll get a bigger reward. So
that's fantastic because I've been doing that since the 90s. Yeah. So it's really nice that finally there's some sort of payoff for that.
Yeah. But most of the Kinect stuff, even including the taunt thing, they won't like commit to 100% right now because they say they're still kind of sussing it out. Which I mean, given that it's a launch game, it seems late to me to be sussing it out. But they say like they're going to go like right up to the end to try to figure all these little Kinect things out. Like they're experimenting with some controller stuff too. Like maybe you hold the controller up to block an arrow or something like that. But none of that's like official yet.
You also last night were able to play a little Killer Instinct, which I know is something you were excited about. How? What'd you think?
I think it's cool. It's the weirdest thing is it's free to play. So it's like you start with one character and then you buy everybody else. And that's going to be really interesting just to see how it works from like a competitive standpoint.
Right.
But I think the game itself, I mean, a lot of people are arguing about whether they think it looks good or not. I mean, you can look at the video and decide. I think it looks fine. I don't think it looks great, but you know, it's good.
Well, it's got the developer's got a great lineage.
Yeah.
They've brought hit games like the G.I. Joe game,
Green Lantern game,
the Battleship game.
Yeah.
Actually, the idea for a fighting game of it being free to play and you buy individual fighters actually kind of appeals to me because I think it would keep it from getting overwhelming. I mean, it's definitely incentive to like get really good with a single fighter.
And they're not the only ones doing that. Like Tekken just did it, Dead or Alive just did it. So it's kind of like this trend in that community. But it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Like as they talk about it, kind of Microsoft's internal team, which includes people like Ken Lobb and some other people, has been working on the game with them, and then they kind of are like using Rare as a consultant to kind of watch over this. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, obviously the developer has a pretty tough track record, and especially in terms of fighting games because they've never made one. So it's a really weird choice from that perspective, but they are like tapping into the fighting game community and trying.
In terms of feel, like I mean,
it feels about the same. I mean, no one ever really thought Killer Instinct was like a hardcore good feeling game anyways. I always liked it, but it was never like that game. So I don't know. To me, I'm excited just because I like that kind of craziness of doing 60-hit combos with like this whole little combo breaker back and forth thing. But I don't think it's gonna be this huge new thing, but I think it's kind of cool.
Any new characters, or is it
not yet? So far, yeah, Glacius, Saberwolf, and Jago are the three. Jago is the one that you get like free when you start off. He's your Ryu.
Okay.
Ryu. Yeah. It's got your Shoryukens.
And that'll be out at launch, right, for the Xbox?
Yeah. Actually, both Ryse and Killer Instinct are launch games.
Huh.
So
awesome. Matt, thank you so much for joining us. Sure appreciate it. And we hope you will join us again at 3 p.m. today for Wireframe. That's a news show. Going to have interviews, lots of great stuff there. And then again, we'll be back at 8 a.m. for High Poly tomorrow morning. So make sure you join us there. I'm Justin McElroy, and for Griffin McElroy, Brian Crescente, and Matt Leon, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you later this afternoon.